mouse is right now, we have an interface. And so we basically have a core architecture or interface that each of the plugins adheres to. And then the plugins can actually deal with the individual logistics companies or your third-party partners, either via RESTful technology, through EDI, through web services, even have some that use XML RPC. So pretty much have the length and breadth of the technologies that are out there. Because we do have some customers that have multiple third-party partners, and they all use a different communications protocol, and of course their the objects that they want to receive or the data that they want to receive is all different across them, and so that's how we make the product extensible and do that. In terms of what we do when we connect back into the core Acumatica, we add some. You'll see it on the shipment screen. You'll see this is pretty rudimentary here, but you'll basically see where we send a fulfillment. We send, and then we acknowledge the fulfillment, and we send an RMA, and we acknowledge an RMA. There's other functionalities. This is actually a slide from an older version, but we actually handle the condition where I'm not sure if you'll have it, but it's undeliverables. We do a lot of work with e-tailers. A lot of the e-tailers, they'll send out 600 to 1,000 shipments a day, and they'll often end up with these shipments are what's termed undeliverable, i.e. they're refused by the door. The person that was there that was supposed to sign for it wouldn't sign for it. But by whatever reason, these are actually come back from the carrier to DCL, for instance, in this case. And it becomes quite a problem because, from a customer service standpoint, you're trying to keep track of where your customer is and stuff like that. So I'll show you a little bit on that if you're interested in it if you want. But it's, the product is, you can see the product, there it is. You can see the product in action. I've got a demo record up here right now, and this is actually connected into here. And we could talk about features if you want, but what I'm just going to do, I'm going to wait for this thing to catch up with me. And if I just want to acknowledge this fulfillment, I have to be careful because if I send a fulfillment over, it'll actually get fulfilled. So I can just show you the acknowledgement. But what we're going to do is we're going to make a round trip out there. No, we're not. Okay. I haven't got a library installed on this. So anyway, but needless to say, this is an older version. It works. We've got one customer. We put upwards of 20,000 orders a month through them across their varying logistics partners. So anyway, that's a highlight. If I had 5 minutes, I could show you the demo, or I could show you the demo on another system.
I can understand how it works, and still images versus real time. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
I do have some technical questions, and maybe I could give just a little bit of background and sort of like where we're at and where we're going, and that might spark some additional details from your side to sort of focus on. But so yeah, we have Acumatica. We turn it on from a finance perspective for payables, right? Because we've been paying out, but we haven't sold products, so we're not doing any AR yet. And so we've been kicking off the distribution management project with our implementation partner. At the same time, trying to identify all the other partners that we need in the process, like 3PL and possibly reverse logistics and all that good stuff. And so we've got obviously our manufacturing partners dialed in because we've been working with them for a couple of years now on our product, and we've been looking at some partners like a DCL, and DCL had checked a lot of the boxes, so they're very, very interesting so far. But we're going to do a little bit of evaluation on a couple more and just do some comparisons. DCL from a technical standpoint was really surprising. I mean, I'm the business systems / data guy, and so I've done this for a while for a lot of different folks like Intel and others, and Logitech and some folks where my primary business space has been in the supply chain area, but I'm doing analytics and data and integration and all that stuff. And so DCL's connectivity and APIs were awesome. It was great to see that because even Acumatica, right? When I came in and they'd already picked the Acumatica solution, and the way they referenced it and sold it was the most amazing integrated, connected API smart tool in the world for ERPs. And I came in and looked at the APIs and we're just like, wow, not so much. So we are trying to make sure we're very, very well integrated between all of our systems. So it's one of the things we constantly look at. And how we get there, I think, is somewhere where we're a little flexible. We bought a integration software as a service integration tool called SnapLogic. It's kind of like whatever you'd expect from a typical cloud integration platform, but it is. It's not one of the ones where you just point to a platform and say connect. Those are probably usually a little too rigid, and so SnapLogic has connectors for tons of different things, but you do graphically, and if you need to through code, customize how you want the integration to work. And so seeing a tool like yours that makes that integration between our two specific systems, right, like our 3PL partner and our distribution management tool, is great to see. I think I'd want to know a little bit more about the technical aspects of like how it works, where it runs. It sounds like you have one customer on it, but understanding the middle API layer, those technical details will probably be pretty good for me. So that we have a couple ways where we can go with this, is work with a partner like you that has done the integration really well and ask you to sort of help us identify what all those pipelines and connection points are going to be, but still do it within our integration tool, SnapLogic, or go and say, okay, yeah, let's just go all the way and use a tool. And we're okay with both, but we probably wouldn't do the second one throughout our whole business. We do want to try to control our integration layer pretty well. But in this case, because it's such a core component of shipping the product and all that good stuff, it might make sense to just buy a solution like yours. So can you talk to the solution, the platform, the technical details a little bit, hosted, all that good stuff?
Right. It can get quite complex, but simply we'll talk about DCL first. What happens is that the actual code that does this, there are some Acumatica files for the interface that you'll see, and in Acumatica there's a few, if you look at the customization packages, just to give you a bit, you'll see what's in here. If we look out here at, where is it, the third-party library here, we'll look at this. You'll see that it's made up of, some of these are you use for Acumatica customizations, and then you'll actually see there's actually some DLLs right in here. So here's DLLs we have, and that they contain our code. So that what happens is from these DLLs, I'm doing this on another one, but there's, for instance, a core DLL. Well, that's the one that we were showing where that's the one that's actually bolting on the side of Acumatica, and that one's injecting our menu items on the actions menu and stuff like that. And from that one, that's the one where then we will invoke. We have another one with the plugins. The plugins, each individual plugin that you talk to, it resides in the bin directory of the IIS where Acumatica runs. And here's basically the DLL. Now the DLL, it uses some other files. You'll notice the error. It uses Newtonsoft JSON, which it didn't have the right version of. That's why it balked and gave you that message. But it'll be made up of a number of other files. And you'll notice here we're using, we've got an XML RPC file in here. But anyway, these are just basically our connection is to there via, it's all hosted the majority of the time.
Got it. So it's just additional code you develop to bolt onto the Acumatica platform. And so
it just drops in there. And what we do is we have to supply parameters to each one of these. And so what we do is that, there's a few screens that basically assist in that each of the plugins will require a different set of parameters. And so these parameters are all how you maintain them in Acumatica, and then they're all sent to the plugins when the plugins are instantiated. So based on the warehouse that we're going to, we look at the warehouse, we see where the warehouse is linked back to the plugin, we instantiate the plugin and then supply the data to it, and then right from there it'll use JSON or web services, or in some cases we write to a we write to a Windows service. We write to a Windows service that's communicating, basically with flat files, and that's for one of our EDI clients. We create it to a flat file, encrypt it, and then send it off, and then when it comes back, we've got another service that's basically running a directory watcher, picks it up, brings it into Acumatica. So they seem seamless from all perspectives. All the plugins, although they use different protocols and technologies, they all act exactly the same to the Acumatica core that we have.
And so when you're calling into the DCL REST APIs, I get that. When does DCL provide like webhooks back so that you can be listening when certain events are? Or what's the communication back from DCL look like?
Well, the communication back from DCL, what we do is we actually, because we have a lot of processes running, we run a side-by-side auxiliary server right next to the core Acumatica server. So what we consider the core Acumatica server runs a database and runs the Acumatica application. Then we have another application, another VM spun up right beside that one. And what we do is on that one we host kind of a Windows cron application. And what we do is, because we use that, although Acumatica has that built-in capability, we use one that we've kind of built ourselves, because we've got a lot of, our timetable and when we're going to run orders and how we're going to sync processes and stuff like that is a little more, we wanted a little more granularity than we were allowed with Acumatica. So what we do is we actually kick these processes off. So we're actually pushing the information into DCL, and then what we're doing is on a periodic basis we're pulling it back, and that's updating everything. So, for instance, because we're dealing with probably 1,000 orders a day with our biggest client, what we're doing is we're sending over, we sync to our web front end every hour, and so shortly after that is done, then we kick off the process and migrate all those orders into DCL, and then we let all that happen till 2 o'clock. Which is a cutoff with DCL, and then after that, about every half hour after that, we start pulling confirmations back, and when we pull the confirmations back, we're actually sending our customers, a confirmation email with their shipment tracking number and that sort of information on it. That's kind of how we're doing it. We're not using any webhooks or anything like that, and DCL actually, from what I read in the API, I don't have that. I don't think.
Yeah, I didn't see any when I scanned it the first time. I mean, the objects and the layout and everything is really good, but I didn't see any webhooks to say. So, okay, that makes sense. Now, then this layer, I mean, so it sounds like one customer and for DCL
Excuse
only.
me, Mike, just for a second.
Yeah.
Just one other footnote here is that different warehouse management systems have different functionality.
Yep.
So we not only have the kind of the data management, but we also have the transaction management to consider. So as an example, one management system may have the ability to cancel an order with a command that's in process, whereas another warehouse management system may not have that functionality. And if you got to cancel an order, you got to pick up a phone. Sure. So there's different, that's another consideration. Another more easy one to consider is just warehouse management system 1 may accommodate 50 different carriers, whereas number 2 only 30 different carriers. So if you're mapping a ship type through DHL, it might work for warehouse system 1, but if warehouse system 2 doesn't support DHL, no go on that score. So you've got the data and the transaction.
Okay,
right.
Makes sense. So can you guys, the layer in between, is it that right now you guys have just built this and you've made connections for Acumatica and DCL, or is this a sort of abstracted layer and you guys are planning on or already have different warehouse management systems and different 3PL partner systems?
Well, we've connected to NMSI in San Jose. We've connected to DCL. We've connected to Renus in the Netherlands. We've connected to IFMS in Canada. We've connected to ShipStation. We've connected to ShipWire. Currently looking at a couple of the big, like DHL. If time permitted, I would basically write the plug-in to DHL. Kind of working down the top 10 list of the big logistics providers. But that I qualify that with time permitting.
Okay, makes sense. And Acumatica, all of this has been written with Acumatica as the ERP system, right?
Yes,
okay.
It is.
Okay, that's the one. And before I was in the data and the BI world, I was a coder for, I don't know, 10 or a dozen years or something like that, and so I understand this, and I was trying to understand how abstracted that middle layer was. So Acumatica is what you guys have written.
It actually is pretty abstracted. If you knew the interface, if you could just take those DLLs out of the bin directory in the IIS where we're running IIS, you could take them out of the bin directory, and of course I have in part of our we're doing a development kit so people could write their own connectors to third-party warehouses. But in that there's a test bench where it's basically just a console application that instantiates the plugin and then sends stuff through to the plugin. There's nothing Acumatica specific in the plugin. That's all back in the Acumatica core connector. So we've abstracted everything that way.
Okay, interesting. And so how many so you have the one customer for Acumatica and DCL. How many customers as a whole do you have on the platform?
I have another customer in Florida, but they basically don't want to be talked about very much. So we'll stop there.
Sure, but the connections with ShipWire and all those other ones, is it because you see the future need for this, or do you have?
No, that was a client request. ShipWire and ShipStation.
What? Okay, but those are one of the two clients you have today, or?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have one or two, but they're using Acumatica and DCL and ShipWire and ShipStation. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Makes sense. Interesting. And so, how long has this been? I'm in my head. I'm thinking through what seems like actually a pretty mature product, but a small number of customers so far. So
April 1st, 2005, and I've had 250,000 transactions go through it.
How? Oh, and I'm just trying to catch up in my head. So, you've had this platform for 10 years, and it sounds really mature.
Sorry, 2015. 2015.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Okay, now I'm understanding. Okay, so you architected really well. Okay. You architected this really well, had the foresight to develop it the right way instead of hacking together a one-off for one customer, realizing that you're going to build a solution, hoping it's scale for lots and lots of customers, and it's been live for a year, and you have 2 customers so far. Got it. Okay. Okay. Well, this is I am really picky about code and tools and stuff. It really looks like you guys did this the right way. What can we I'd like to learn a lot more about the technical side if we were to continue talking. But I think one of the qualifiers would probably be price, just so I understand where we are in a ballpark. How do you guys handle pricing and licensing and all that?
Jim? Where'd Jim go?
Jim's right here. We're we're walking through that in our mind right now. But in general, we believe the tool will be available both on a perpetual model and on a SaaS/private cloud subscription model.
Okay.
And relative to the perpetual, it's going to be somewhere around $10,000 with annual maintenance of 20%. And then on the subscription model, it'll be somewhere around $4,000 a year.
Okay. And then that is the that is how you're going to license it. There's no transaction levels, up to 2,000 per day or any of that garbage. It's just,
well, it's a good question. The answer to your question there is no, but there is a yes part to it. So the other factors that would consider price are as follows. Relative to your question there, Acumatica prices their, well, we're going to conform to Acumatica, and that's one of the reasons we don't have this thing figured out fully yet. And with Acumatica, you've got the core product, which is called Advanced. And then Advanced has various levels from a processor perspective. So the base Advanced runs on a 2-core processor, or takes advantage of 2 cores of a processor. Then you can pay an uplift to go to 4 cores, and then an uplift to go to 6 cores. So the correlation is the more complex your operation or the more users you have, the more you add to the core of the code. And likewise, we'll have uplifts on our software price consistent with Acumatica. So to make the point, if we were to sell to a multinational company with, a dozen DCLs and 300 customers, our price would be more expensive than it would be for a startup with 10 users and two third-party warehouses.
Okay.
Right? But we would do it per Acumatica, not on a per transaction basis.
Okay, makes sense. But if you do, if long term you are thinking about other ERP systems, then that ties you pretty closely, and your pricing is tying you closely into Acumatica. Maybe that's okay. Maybe you will end up having different pricing based on the different ERP providers you integrate with.
And the Acumatica price model is unique, but so far that's we're thinking in terms of Acumatica right now. But I agree. If we move to other scenarios, we might use different pricing to be consistent with the ERP package. Okay. And then the other piece would be a fee to bridge to a new DCL with a new third-party warehouse with some type of new technology. Right.
Okay, that's not crazy. I mean, that makes sense to me. Sorry to describe your pricing model as not crazy. I mean, it sounds appropriate. Let me think this through. Okay, I think that makes a lot of sense. So we are working with a partner right now that we're kicking off our distribution management project, and we're going to have a couple of working sessions here in a couple of weeks. And this will be an interesting scenario where we would work with our quote-unquote primary implementation partner. I don't like this model where you have a software provider and then you have like your one partner that you work through, but it is what it is with Acumatica. It seems sort of like an older model, but that's what it is. And but it'll be interesting where we could then say, for the primary project and implementing it within Acumatica and turning on all the little things that we need, 6 or 8 weeks worth of that, and then working with you as another partner to really supplement it and get the connection points in place for the 3PL or the warehouse partner integrations. I don't think that shouldn't be a confusing thing. I think that should be an easy thing. The only reason I'm bringing it up, right, is because I just need to think through how this partner integration and support works. We really do want our primary partner to support our Acumatica instance, and when there's issues with it, be able to support us and figure things out. And so, bolting on a custom project with custom DLLs into Acumatica, it's more than just like an integration into Shopify, let's say. It is customizing the Acumatica instance, and we would either need to draw lines in the sand for who supports us for what, or something. You guys have any thoughts on that? Am I over confusing that?
No.
Partner arrangement with.
I have to, and I'm afraid I have to go now. But Greg, if you could handle this, and then I'll be more than happy, Mike, to call back and discuss this, because you're hitting an issue of you don't want finger pointing, so that typically means that everyone has to act as a professional. And
I need the relationships really cleanly defined. I think we can do it. Everybody wants the success, right? So I think we can do it, but I bet it's more unique than it is the norm. So.
Yeah. Well,
okay.
We have our
all
commitment to be professional and to play well there.
I'll catch up. Yeah, Mike, on the how we deal with, we actually work in that case. We actually have this particular client I was showing you on the third party that we're doing the third-party warehousing with. We're actually the primary implementation partner there, and we actually work with another product that actually interfaces to the web front end, and they kind of work. They kind of work as a subcontractor through us, and plus they have a pretty tight relationship with the customer as well. So, I mean, although like we're like the general contractor and they're like a sub, they still talk to the customer. So it's a pretty good relationship. They're a good partner, and we understand working with we kind of we're going to get the moniker as what they call an ISV, and so we're like an Acumatica developer, and when we go in there, we realize we can't wear the primary implementation hat, and that they were successful as a primary implementation partner winning your business, and we respect that, and we're not going to try and grind work that doesn't really belong to us away from them. So we have to assure them that we're only there for the bit that we're doing, and if we're just doing the third-party warehouse integration, we'll do that. We'll certainly share all the information with them, so that should any problem arise, that they could, from a technical perspective, contact us. But from a day-to-day operation and configuring things and everything like that, we just bring them up to speed on it. One of the things you may have to do, you may bring on a new carrier and shipping method. So there's how do you do that? So they need to know how to do that, because that's a day-to-day thing, and frankly, we'd get overwhelmed if we tried to handle every one of those requests as we see it down the road, right? So
probably not your primary business. Yeah.
No. I mean, not this. I mean, when we're the implementation partner, of course, we do dot all the T's and cross the I's. But when we wear the hat, like with the other company, we went through. There's another VAR or Acumatica that's kind of like the general contractor, the prime integrator on that one, and we're working with him in that role. So.
Okay, makes sense. So then, let me just think through the right timing for like a next conversation. So we have, let's see, I think we have our implementation partner here for like a working session the week after next. I have to double check. I think we were waiting on a couple confirmations on some of my team here to make sure that they're good. And I think once we get sort of like the project plan and scope of what's going on laid out a little bit more, I would guess maybe like a week after that. So now we're talking, let's see, 1 week, 2 week, the third week out, we might have like a project plan a little bit better aligned. I'm hoping we would have our 3PL partner decision a little bit better aligned, so we could say, in fact, yes, it's DCL, or it's DCL for this, but for, we might need to supplement, refurbishing through somebody else. Then I think we could probably sit down again and talk, give you guys some more details on the project and what we're implementing, what we're not, and then you guys could probably help us understand things like timeline, how long something like this would take, talk through some of those details. Does that sound about the right time to talk, or should we be talking a little bit sooner to understand timing?
That sounds good. Just a couple quick questions. What version of Acumatica are you planning on going live on?
That's a really good question. 6.0 is coming out in June. Right now we're on the latest. We've been upgrading,
okay.
Well, not religiously, but since I sort of took over supporting it from our original partner, which didn't actually have a lot of Acumatica knowledge, we've been upgrading regularly. So we're on 5.3 something right now.
Okay, all right.
So it'll either be 5.3 or 6, and we'll just have to see what 6 has and how bumpy it is, and we'll have to do our testing and then decide, do we want to launch, and how close is launch to 6. and I think we'll have enough time. Until we sign an NDA, I can't really share that date, but we'll have, I think, enough time that 6 will have been out, that we'll have been able to test and evaluate it and say that if we needed to, we could go with 6. But
right. And your implementation partner, I mean, don't tell me if you don't want to, but I've worked with a couple of guys in Central California, so just
yeah, we're with Collins Computing. And
okay, yeah, they're a good company.
Okay.
Very
good
thorough.
here.
Yeah, I've just worked with another one out of Sacramento, and I thought it might be the same guy. So
okay.
Anyway, okay, good. Well, that's that works pretty good. So, what would be your when would you basically fire up a pilot? You think?
I think what's sounding like their estimates, even though we need to have, it was an initial proposal based on a couple hours of discussions, but we're going to have a workshop or something for a day to really walk through it, and then they're going to tune up their proposal and really create a more finite project schedule. I'm guessing it's a couple months, and so let's say we kicked it off in, we're in the middle of May. Let's say we really started kicking things off in June. I think by the end of July, we would have it fully functional and running, and end of that month or so going through some testing, at least enough to the point where we would really could have enough of it. Maybe there's some fine tuning here and there, but could begin to do the 3PL integration. So.
Yeah, as I'm probably preaching to the choir and not telling you anything. The most difficult thing with dealing with the third-party warehouses is actually testing with them, because the majority of the ones that I've dealt with, and I've dealt with now 6 of them, really their sandbox test platforms are really such a subset of what they will do, and their data is so minimal in them that it's a pain to actually test with them. So I'm glad it's somebody you're considering somebody that's actually we're actually working with now. So, and just from our part as witnessing our customer, their partner with DCL, I found DCL to be very solid in terms of being a logistics company. So.
Good. Yeah, we've every conversation we've had with them has been really encouraging, and nothing but confidence building, which is usually kind of not the case, to be honest. You're usually sort of finding the good stuff, trying to highlight as many bad things as possible so you know what you're walking into. But so far the conversations and the knowledge and the platforms and stuff like that have looked really good so far. So we'll do a little bit more due diligence and look at a couple others, but I'm hoping that, like I said, in a few weeks we'll be able to make a decision.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just blabbing. Go ahead.
If ahead of that, if you guys can maybe give me a little bit of some of the stuff we talked about, like what connectors you guys have connected to, the DCL, the ShipWire, the ShipStation. I guess that would be about it. That would be helpful because we've looked at a few others, and like I said, we might have to supplement because our product is a consumer electronics product. It's pretty darn advanced. We have a bunch of Apple engineers here, ex-Apple engineers here working on it, and have been for a little while. And so there's going to be sort of like the level 1 return processing that our primary 3PL will probably do, but then we'll probably have another partner that does a lot more detailed analysis of the product and refurbishing if possible and all that good stuff. And so it'll be good to see that list and what you've done, just to understand that, yes, this is a well abstracted, nice service, and but it also might point us in a direction that, hey, we were thinking about looking at that partner but hadn't actually talked to them, and maybe we should.
Are you looking at international as well?
I don't think so, to be honest. I think the ones we had looked at a couple that we immediately knocked off. We then looked at DCL, which has been nothing but encouraging. We have a couple other conversations coming up. I think I've been out of the loop for the last week, but I think one of them is Ingram Micro Mobility. Ingram, I think that's it. And then I actually don't know the other two that they were looking at.
Okay. Yeah, because the one customer that we have, the biggest customer there, one is domestic, but one is actually uses, gets it shipped directly from their contract manufacturer to warehouses in Rotterdam or in Vancouver or to DCL. So, they've got kind of a global coverage, and hence why they are using more than one logistics company. So.
Oh, right. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, we'll have the offshore manufacturing, we'll have the onshore U.S. Warehouse, and then there's expansion plans based on obviously demand and how far out from launch. And DCL had that partnership that they had just been I think they just got through, and they, the great part about that, the way they described it, was that they connected the two systems through APIs so that you're still just dealing with DCL. And just because they have an international partner, you don't need to do a bunch of code, write a bunch of code and integrations to connect to that third party if you want, or that third partner of theirs, that they just sort of, it's obfuscated from their side. From our side, we just know we're dealing with DCL, and they just happen to be using a partner overseas. So.
Yeah. Oh, well, you're thinking about all the right things. So, okay. All right. Well, I'll get an email off to you on the the plugins that we've written, and some of them I'll just do some of them don't have all the functionality because they're either their APIs or their systems don't support it. But I'll give you the highlights of what we do with each of those, and it'll give you some sort of an idea.
Okay. That'd be great. Right. And then I'll reply back with just the rough schedule so you guys have it in hand. I'm guessing, like I said, that we'll get through this first workshop in a couple weeks, and that'll give me an indicator of I think within a week or so they should turn around a plan, and then we could share it with you guys and at least talk about the right points to touch base, and then maybe have a little bit more detailed conversations about the technology, maybe just a little bit more of a detailed review, and then pricing and that sort of stuff.
Okay. All right.
Oh, actually, one last question. How long did the implementation take? And if you could think about it from like breaking out the core Acumatica implementation, if you did that, as well as the actual integration with your tool to do the DCL to Acumatica connection, how long did that connection integration take?
If I gave you a list of all the information that I need before you start, probably 2 hours.
2 hours to actually turn it on?
Yeah, I just install it and turn it and put in your information. The kind of stuff I need is I need this type of stuff. I need to know, well, for DCL, I need to know this information.
For you, yeah.
I need to know this information.
Right.
Things like what's your default ship code, what's your account number, that sort of stuff. And then I need to know how are you mapping all of the DCL. And now, DCL actually have a lot of methods that they provide, but what we do is we have to map these to Acumatica ShipVise. So when you pull a ship down as the expedited saver with signature, this is so that, we know to tell DCL that that's their FedEx Express Saver RPS. So what we're doing is we're mapping all that. That's what takes the most time. The plugin itself in Acumatica is just a package. If we go to customize packages, you go just, there's the plugins themselves. I say get the package. It takes about that long to upload it too. It just downloaded the software out of this package. It takes about that long to upload it. All I have to do is a little bit of configuration, and it's good. That's the nice thing about DCL. We don't have to test. We put 250,000 records through DCL. So.
Oh, so then if we turn it on, I mean, just for our sanity's sake, there's probably a testing cycle we'd need to go to, but that setup is minimal, and then the testing cycle might be something like a few days or something like that to just sort of
right.
With them, across the wire.
Just a couple quick questions. Is your inventory going to be serialized?
It is.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good because that sometimes presents a challenge with the third-party warehouses, but luckily DCL they're the best on handling the serial numbers from my perspective.
Okay. That insight's really good. I mean, because so when you send over that partner list, sort of if you have some insight as to crappy ones and bad ones from a technology standpoint, because that's a valid, it's nice at this company, that's actually a valid decision point. You know, if the company does a great job from a process and from an operations standpoint, the operation folks are happy, but the integrations suck, then that is actually a valid point that is looked at when we're actually picking partners. And that's why the DCL one was great, because operationally they sound fantastic, and the technology side I'm super excited about it. It sort of checked all my boxes. So that that insight would be helpful. That'd be great.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll send some emails back and forth, and we'll pick it up. I'll look to something in over the next couple of weeks. Maybe we'll touch base again.
Awesome, Greg. Really appreciate it. It was a great call. Thank you very much.
All right, Mike. Bye.
All right, have a good one.